And here we are, I think. You never know with modern technology, but I believe we are live. And I've been saying this before, and I'll say it again until I'm correct, but I think I've got the sound problems fixed. I brought in a different microphone. This is the Nessie Blue, called Blue, and the microphone's called the Nessie. Uh, Pikakiniska says, hello from Finland. Thank you very much. I'm glad to see people checking in from the home of my ancestors. But please let me know if, in fact, the sound is better than before, because I tested it. I actually logged on this morning, shot a short, private, live, watched it back, and it sounded better. So, sound is a lot better, according to Robert Odell and Brian Whittle. That's 2 out of 2, guys. That's confirmation. We're good to go. So the Electro Voice RE20 sitting here, just taking a break for today, but the Nessie Blue is doing the heavy lifting. So there you go. Thanks for checking in. I've had several people ask me about the voiceover at the beginning of the most recent videos, which I've got to mention. Somebody just asked now in the comments, but I get correspondence from around the world, and I was corresponding with somebody in Canada who mentioned working at a radio station. And actually, I wore the shirt on camera last week from a place, I believe, and I hope I can say this correctly, Nanaimo, which is near British Columbia. And long story short, she does voiceover work, and I asked her if she could do me some voiceovers. So she did the voiceover to introduce Leto's Law. Normally, I used to have just the blank screens with no sound. So I've been running her voice underneath the intro. And the ironic thing is it shocked a lot of people because I didn't say, by the way, heads up, next week there'll be a live voice there of somebody else. And a lot of people said, Steve, that's a robotic voice. Why would you use that? Or I've been accused of using Siri. I went and checked what Siri's voice sounds like. It's totally different. But that is a live human being who is doing a voiceover for me as a favor. I'm just trying to class up the joint. What can I tell you? So as with any change in life, there's always going to be some people who don't like it, some people who do like it, and some people say, hey, let's see how it works out. So you never know. Did you ever meet Jerry Ford, the president? Gerald Ford? No, I've never met any presidents, past or current. I've met several governors of Michigan. I met Engler, Milliken, Blanchard, and I'm missing one, but I know I've met 4 or 5 governors of the state of Michigan. So not a robot, an android. There you go. Checking in from Grand Rapids, Michigan, Patrick Hall. Thanks for checking in. Grand Rapids, of course, is the other side of the mitten from me. See here, Robert Odell, 160 already. And by the way, Mr. Odell, I have to point out that a very, very good friend of mine, Bob Odell, was a disc jockey for many, many years in Michigan. And the first few times I saw your name cross the feed, I thought maybe you were him, but I don't think you are. I suspect there's more than one Robert Odell in the world using that name. Dean points out that she said, no, I'm not a robot. And she has, the human being behind the voice has a sense of humor. And I sent her a note because she asked me to say, Steve, give me some feedback on how people handle the change with the new voice they're introing the show. And I said, you were accused of being a robot by several people. And I said, if you want to have some fun with this, would you tape me another, not intro, but outro, or they call it an extra sometimes, and say, thanks for listening to Leto's Law. And no, I'm not a robot. So not everyone heard that because that played over the closing credits. So you got to listen. So Jim Adams asks, is Michiganian or Michigander correct? And that is a style issue, and it depends on what you want to go off of. Michigander makes no sense as far as a demonym goes. That is a name that you give someone from some place. There's no rule by which you'd put D-E-R after somebody who comes from a place that ends with I-A-N or A-N. So Michiganian makes more sense. Michigander was originally an insult leveled at us by people who didn't like us. So I'd rather not go with the insult, but some people like it. So what can I tell you? Michigander's got a funny sound to it. And I guess if you like being amused by what people call you, you can go with that. But what can I tell you? So greetings from Palm Harbor, Florida. Thanks for checking in from Florida. I like it when people check in from around the nation and around the world. Jeopardy. I rode the ferry to Mackinac Island multiple times with Soapy Williams. Oh, yeah. But what's funny is a friend of mine also met Milliken going on the ferry out to Mackinac Island. So Mackinac Island is an island in Lake Huron between the upper and lower peninsula, kind of off to the side. You can see from the Mackinac Bridge. Beautiful place. And it's one of those places that you can actually bump into famous people who just go there. So Michiganite, as Tommy points out, is another possibility. And GPN says the sound is great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So I'm going to tell you right now, I mentioned recently, I do book signings a lot. And a while back, I had a stack of winged car books that I sold off because I had some left over from a car show I did not go to. I spoke last week to a group of guys at a car club about Preston Tucker. And I ordered some books for that talk, and I wound up with some left over. So I'm going to make this offer just to people who are watching this live feed. So, I mean, if somebody watches the live feed a couple days down the road, I'll probably be okay with this. But as of right now, I have a stack of these in my living room, or in my kitchen, actually. But Preston Tucker's Battle of Build a Car tomorrow. If you want one, I'm not going to sit here and hawk books all day, but if you want one of these books, shoot an email to me. The email's in the description of the video and at the top of this dialog box, steve@latoslaw.com. Shoot me a email and say, Steve, I'm interested in the book. And I'll explain to you how we do that with Square. $15. It's less than it costs on Amazon. It's all about Preston Tucker and his battle to build the car of tomorrow, which is this green car right there. And then I've had people say, Steve, but what about the other books? And I'll just let you know right now, my most popular book of all time is American Murder Houses. If you want a copy of this, $15 also, shoot me the notes. But like I said, this is just the people who are enjoying the live feed right now. I will not mention it again. So there you go. So in fact, 213 of you are in the room right now. This offer pretty much is for you guys, but I'm sure it'll trickle out elsewhere. So Jeff says he's a Sheboyganite. The question is, are we from Sheboygan, Wisconsin or Sheboygan, Michigan? It's one of those really, really strange place names that you actually have in different states. And I've mentioned before, I lived briefly in Eau Claire, Michigan. There's Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Eau Claire, Wisconsin is much bigger than Eau Claire, Michigan. John Little's a Michigander in Madison Heights. Aren't you a Madison Heightsander then, I guess? New Hampshire. Yeah, well, they got to call you something. You're from New Hampshire. Aren't you Hampshireites? I don't know. That's New Hamsters, but probably not. So none of your business is I'll start a GoFundMe to raise the $15. I probably shouldn't tell you this. But I did the contest last week and I said, send me lawyer jokes. And I read the 17 that made me laugh on an episode that I put up last week. And I said, if you send me a lawyer joke and I use it, I will send you a free copy of the Lemon Law Bible. And a guy who's a regular commenter on my channel sent me a joke that was kind of esoteric, but I didn't think it was that funny. And he said, Steve, why didn't you send, my joke was funny. And I said, no, it wasn't really that funny. I go, but seriously, you're going to argue with me over this book? And he goes, yes. And I go, if you want it that bad, just email me. And he emailed me. So I sent him a book. So what can I tell you? Muskegon, Michigan, TNA Treasures. Check it out. It's funny. I have to tell you right now, many people ask me like, what's on that side of the computer? Like you all know what's on this side, me, microphones, bunch of knickknacks and stuff. What's on that side? And of course, I got a camera right now. I got a laptop. I've got an iPad down here with a clock on it. But I've also got my phone over here, and I have that there in case somebody sends me an emergency message during the show for some odd reason. And I just got an email saying, Steve, I want a book. So it's good to know that we have this back and forth going right here. So Mark says, what do you call a failed lawyer? A politician. Yeah, and there's a series of those. What do you call the guy who graduated last in his law school class? Your Honor. I mean, it works because it's funny and it's true. Norway, Iowa. There's a Norway in Iowa now. Wow. I believe there's a Norway, Michigan, way up north. I think. I could be wrong on that. I know there's a Paris, Michigan. Psycho Dad. Hey, Steve from Saginaw. Beautiful. A couple shows back, I wore my Saginaw Spirits t-shirt. Saginaw is a town right here in Michigan, and they've got a minor league hockey team called the Spirits, and I love minor league hockey, so I went and saw them, and I saw they had a really, really cool shirt, so I wore the shirt on camera. I'll wear it on camera from time to time. I like to support organizations that have cool shirts, and of course, anybody who sends me a shirt, XXL, As long as it's not obscene, I will wear it. And of course, today I'm wearing the Leto's Law official shirt. I had a guy contact me with, Steve, can I buy a t-shirt from you? And I said, if you really want one. So there's actually one of these that I sold out there amongst the population. How much for the book? Both the books are $15. Preston Tucker, American Murder House is $15 a piece. So if you want one, shoot me an email. And that's it. Hey, Steve from the UK, Pete Faraday. Where in the UK are you? I've been to London twice. I'm sorry, I've been to London 3 times and made it outside of town a couple times. Visited the Tank Museum, but did not make it to Stonehenge, nor did I make it to Manchester, home of a football club that I've worn their jersey on my show before and gotten all kinds of flack because they are a divisive squad, as we like to say. Hey, Steve from Medicine Hat, Alberta. Yes. Medicine Hat's one of the greatest names of all place names in North America. And of course, it's famous for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is that in the movie Youngblood, starring a young Rob Lowe, I believe, playing a hockey player in the minor leagues, has a coach get mad at him and say, in essence, if you keep screwing up, I'm going to send you to Medicine Hat. And the funny thing is, for those of you who know anything about amateur hockey, Medicine Hat's actually a decent hockey place. But I guess to an American, it sounds like it'd be on the edge of like reality. So, Medicine Hat. Pete Faraday, the Midlands. Cool. Bob Summers says, obscene by whose community standards? I mentioned I'd wear a shirt on camera as long as it wasn't obscene. Unfortunately, I do have to play along with YouTube's rules. Okay. So if it passes what would probably be okay on YouTube, I'll wear it. I've only gotten 1 or 2 that I couldn't wear, and they were not close. So, hey, Steve, where can I obtain a bar-admitted canine dog lawyer from Illinois? See, and Prank Monkey is asking a serious question. You know, I want a lawyer dog, or I want a lawyer, dog is a legal question. And then, of course, if you're actually seeking a lawyer dog, presumably the lawyer to be licensed in your jurisdiction. So a lawyer dog from Illinois could not help you if you were in Louisiana. Ironically, he'd be blocked by the the restrictions on his license to practice dog law. Isn't there a fish hatchery in Paris, Michigan? Patrick Hall. You know, I don't know. I've never been to Paris, Michigan, as far as I know. I seem to recall it's over here someplace, westish, but not towards the coastline enough. So I don't know that much about it. I've just, somebody asked me years ago, and I was joking about how there's certain towns that are everywhere. And I said, you know, Paris, France, but it could be Paris, Michigan. And I looked it up, and there actually is one. So, Steve, tuning in from Flint, Michigan, where the gas is unleaded, but the water is not. Frank, hey, thanks for checking in. By the way, Frank, I don't know how long you've been in Flint, but for years I worked at WFDF and CK105. In fact, I was just moving some stuff around on the shelf earlier today, and I moved the WFDF mug, but I did a talk show there many, many years. And I also played the hits at CK105 back in the day. Jim Bergen says, everyone, please like this so it moves up the live YouTube list. Let's get at least 500. That's, you know, guys, that's my fervent goal in life. I realize now 500 seems like it's unreachable. Somewhere down the road, it might be a small number, but right now, I'd like to hit 500. I've gotten 450 a couple times, but not 500. So there we go. Greetings from the rain in Oregon. Kristen Sorensen, thanks for checking in. Is it raining there right now, though? I know Oregon and Seattle have a reputation as being precipitation overloaded. So there you go. LMAO, if you're banished from Michigan, where would you live? Ooh, that'd be tough. I've lived in Florida and California and didn't like either one of them. Of the places I've visited where I actually looked around and said, you know, this is a nice place. I think I could live here. I like the Carolinas, North and South. I've been to both of them. I'd probably find myself living someplace near Charlotte, just so I could go by and visit the Hickory Motor Speedway where Bobby Isaac raced that car back in the day. Although he never actually raced that one on that track. The Hickory Motor Speedway is too small. So Bend, Oregon, it's sunny right now. There you go. There you go. SJIM. What happened to Buick City, Flint, Michigan? Are you talking about the actual concept of Flint being the Buick City? Or are you talking about the actual factory? There was a whole facility that General Motors had on Saginaw, north or south of Flint itself, and there was a whole facility there where they built a lot of cars, and they leveled it years ago. So there are still places in and around Flint where they manufacture cars, trucks. If you go up I-75, for instance, just before you get to 69, right at that intersection, southeast corner is a huge facility. They got some engine facilities there, Flint Truck and Bus, and so on. So there's a lot of manufacturing still happening in Flint, but nothing compared to what they were doing before the movie Roger and Me came out. So there you go. Cliff checking in from just outside Pittsburgh. There you go. And yay, Florida rains all the time, but it's warm rain. And Sambo Joe, that is true. And I was in the Fort Lauderdale area. And the amazing thing about Florida is it can be pouring rain to the point where you think it's the end of the world. I'm talking about the book of Revelations, not Genesis. I'm talking about the kind of rain that you actually start worrying about your safety, even though you're indoors. And a half hour later, it's sunny. The pavement's smoking from the steam coming off of it. You walk outside, it's humid. It's 110% humidity, but it ain't raining anymore. And so the weather in Florida is very strange. But the problem I have with Florida, and I've told this to people before, they have a thing called a palmetto bug, which is basically a cockroach, but it's about this big. And I mean, you can hit it with the heel of a shoe and it just looks at you like, is that all you got? And I remember talking to people down in Florida and they go, oh, it's a palmetto bug. And I go, isn't it just a big cockroach? And they go, yeah, but we don't call them that. So if you've got a cockroach in your house this big, you might be living in Florida, but you don't call it a cockroach. You call it a palmetto bug. Patrick Hall says, Steve, I have a stupid question. Hey, no question is stupid here. Mechanics can rip you off in Michigan now. Could doctors use this appeals court ruling for performing surgeries? And he's talking about the fact that a court of appeals in Michigan recently said that a mechanic cannot be sued under the Motor Vehicle Service and Repair Act if he doesn't finish a job because he started it. And basically, they destroyed that law by doing that. So a couple of things I have to point out here, and one of them is that's very specific just to mechanics, because no one else can use that. But the other thing is, there's an article in today's Detroit News. Go online, Detroit News or detnews.com, DETNEWS, detnews.com. Front page, a column by Neil Rubin. Great guy. He quotes me in the opening sentence. So I've got a video that's going to go up about it shortly. But weird story. It's one of these things that really makes me wonder, like, why did I waste my time going to law school? Because if a ruling like this can happen, it proves that there is no logic to courts and there's probably no God. So there you go. Sable Miner says, Michigan about to get slammed by a big snowstorm and cold. Yeah, I've heard that. But, you know, the cool thing is that Michigan's got an upper peninsula and a lower peninsula. And the upper peninsula gets hammered way before we do, both by the snow and the cold. And right now, there's no snow outside my place, but there is snow even in northern Michigan, northern lower Michigan, and across the Mackinac Bridge in the upper. There's snow up there as well. But right now, it's just cold. Amy Jo says she saw the article. Thank you very much. Like I said, I got it this morning and my phone went nuts. And it went nuts because people are going, Steve, you're in the paper. You're in the paper. So Seth says we call those palmetto bugs sewer roaches in Phoenix, but they really do like to live in palm trees too. Yeah, again, like I said, everybody's got a spin for it. I suspect realtors call them that. Like, hey, was it a huge cockroach? No, it's a palmetto bug. It sounds exotic then, you know. Busted Wallet Garage. Hello from Memphis, home of Elvis and gang shootings. I've been to Memphis before. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Beale Street. I know it's a tourist thing, but if you want good food, walk down Beale Street, just close your eyes and walk in the first door. It doesn't even matter if it's a restaurant or not. They got better food than most restaurants in America. Mark, how much of daytime TV court shows are scripted versus legal arbitration? You mean things like People's Court and so on? Most of those shows, they're not scripted in that sense, but what they do, and I know many of you know this, so I apologize, I'll keep it short. But People's Court and all of the related shows, Judge Judy, Judge Steve, whoever, what they do is they find a courthouse near where they shoot the shows, and they go through the small claims filings, and they contact the parties, and they go, look, you're suing this person for $900. If you two will agree to come into court and let us televise it, number one, you'll be on TV. And number two, we'll pay the judgment, but we're going to pay the judgment as dictated by the judge on the show. Well, the person who's suing doesn't care, because if they win, they get the money. And the person who's being sued is like, great, this way I don't have to pay no matter what happens. And I might get to be on TV. And of course, people will sign anything and agree to anything if they can get to be on TV. So it's a genius idea. And I remember when People's Court first came out, people are saying, how do they get these people? And then they realize, oh, that's it. They just go through the small claims filings of some local courthouse. Paul Lemke says Marquette gets hammered by snow. Yes, they do, but not as bad as the Keweenaw Peninsula, which is a little bit further north and to the west. And they get hit hard because they've got Lake Superior surrounding them. The lake effect snow just dumps in the feet, not the inches, the feet. So TK McMillan says, come on down. We need some good lawyers in South Carolina, just not good old boy lawyers. That's the problem. If I move to another state, I'd have to retake a bar or get admitted. And some states would accept me with reciprocity because I'm licensed in Michigan, but some states don't. But learning the court procedures, for instance, in another state just boggles my mind. I got friends I went to law school with, and I talked to them about law in California. And, 28 years ago, I knew it pretty well. And it still shocks me when they tell me how the procedure works. And I'm like, what? Did I know this at one point? And they're like, I'm sure you did, Steve. You probably forgotten. I'm like, oh, okay. So what are you going to do? Vern Acres Hobby Farm, 2 hours from Memphis. Are you in Tennessee, though? That's the question. Ever see Judge Caprio from Cotton Providence? Yes, I have. Cotton Providence is a great thing. They take the, I think it's just the courtroom video of a guy who is kind of entertaining. He's an older guy, and he likes to talk to people and decide if they're deserving of actual punishment or maybe they've learned their lesson. I've seen him actually ask a little kid, what do you want me to do to your father in terms of punishment? And it's just, it's a good thing, I think, because I think it really is a way to make the courts seem more human. Most people view courthouses as evil places where bad things happen. And it's kind of like there's this dark building, nothing good happens in there. And so I think Cotton Providence actually does a good job of making them more human. By the way, we just crossed the 300 viewer mark right now in the studio, 300 people, and we're still in the first half hour. So, hey, if I did a straight line graph, wait a second, hold on. I think we could get 600 by the end of the show, but it doesn't work that way. None your business, good lawyers. Isn't that an oxymoron? Depends on your point of view. One of the funny things is when they do marketing studies and they ask people about what do you like about this? What do you not like about this? And one of the things they ask people is they go, what do you dislike about attorneys? People go, well, the attorneys, they'll say or do anything to win. And if you ask someone who's hired an attorney, how far do you want this guy to go? They'll go, oh, I want to do anything he can to win. So it's that thing. Are we talking about the lawyer that you have or the lawyer you're up against? Because it can be viewed as a benefit. It can be viewed as a bad thing. So there you go. Audio and video are out of sync by about half a second to 1 second. Yeah, I apologize. That's beyond my control. And I'm still not doing the connection to the internet as high speed as I could. Because it would require me to run some cable or something, which I haven't figured out yet. Hey, look, I just figured out the microphone thing today. Okay. So one problem at a time. I'm convinced if I solved all my problems on one day, either something bad would happen karma wise, or maybe I drop dead. So what I do is one problem at a time. So if I solve the audio today, I'm happy. We'll get the sync issues later. Or maybe I could learn as a ventriloquist to move my mouth first and have the words come out a second later. But then I'd have to constantly be worried about whether or not I'm getting ahead or behind the synchronization problem. So there you go. By the way, years ago, I did live call-in talk in Flint and actually had a 7-second delay with a big old dump button on it. And so I'm sitting in a studio in front of a microphone like this one, watching a, computer with callers on it, taking live phone calls, and I'd have somebody utter a bad word. And that means you've got 7 seconds to reach over and go thunk, and then 7 seconds just disappears. And it's one of these things that really messes with your head at first, because you go, wait, where did the 7 seconds go? Because a listener, all they heard was, well, by the way, Mr. Leto, I really think you're a, and here we are again. No. And it disappears, but there's no 7 seconds. And what's happening is the time delay is running the audio through a thing before it goes out in the air, and it gradually slows down what's going out so it can build up a buffer, and then it starts doing it in real time. And the second you dump the 7 seconds, it's got to build that buffer back up again. And you're thinking, wait, so there are times where my voice on the air has been sped up or slowed down, but it does it at such a small proportion that like human ears can't hear it. Dogs might be able to hear it, but humans can't. So there you go. He got a new mic for live stream, it looks like. Yes, I did. And for those of you who missed the very, very beginning, is that this is, in fact, a Blue microphone made by a company called, the company's called Blue. It's the Blue Nessie microphone. I'll do this really quick. There you go. And I get asked from time to time questions about podcasting and so on. And if you are a podcaster on a budget, this microphone with headphones from a place that sells stuff discounted, like Sweetwater, Guitar Center, things like that, will set you back under $100. So it's not a bad thing. And if you listen to this microphone through headphones in the back plug here, 0 latency. So you won't get this situation with what you're saying hitting your ears late. It'll be hitting your ears so fast that it sounds correct. So I did my podcast for years with this microphone, and also the first 2 or 3 years of my videos with this microphone. It was only this morning I realized, I can plug this microphone into here and turn this off and turn that on and get it all to work. So there you go. Patrick Hall, make sure you have a puppet when you do the ventriloquist. Yeah, the other voice over here. There you go. The audio today is amazing. Sounds as great as daily episodes, in my opinion. Mark Ewing, thank you very much. And again, it's one of those things, I can tell you right now, it's so close that it's probably the same. But the Electro Voice RE20 is what we use in radio, what I used in radio for years. And I'm really comfortable using this. And I love the way this sounds. But again, I used this for years. And if you played in your podcast, say, Steve, guess which one you're using, I probably couldn't tell you until I heard the content and knew it was an old one or a new one. So what are your thoughts about the prisoner serving a life sentence who died and was revived? I did a video on that, and there was a guy in prison in Iowa, of all places, and he's serving a life sentence, and he died not in prison, but they took him to the hospital, and he died there. They revived him, and he then said, well, hey, I served my life sentence because I was in prison until I died. You got to let me go now. And the Iowa Supreme Court didn't buy it. But there was actually another story about that I actually glossed over in the video, and people pointed it out in the comments, and I agree. The guy had a do not resuscitate order on file. And while in the hospital, apparently while he was going through these problems, because they actually had to revive him like 5 times, they contacted his next of kin, who I think was his brother. And they said, hey, look, this guy keeps dying, and we keep kickstarting him and getting him going again. And he said, don't. They said, don't. He has a DNR. And apparently the guy said, unless by saving his life, you can get him out of pain. Like if he's dying in a really painful manner and you can make the pain go away, do what you got to do. But otherwise, if he's just dying, let him die. And he had the do not resuscitate order. And despite that, they revived him 5 times, stabilized him, and then brought him back to the prison. So, but we're at 338. Somebody says too many people are out celebrating a holiday to hit 500 today. I know Veterans Day is tomorrow, and I think it's a holiday a couple other places too. So someone's checking in from Yuma, I assume Arizona. Bob Summers, EV635. Are you referring to a microphone? So, and your name here says, I prefer the Electro Voice unless you change something else in the room. It sounds too bright now. Well, and again, nothing's changed in the room all I've changed is I'm using this microphone, and this microphone is better than the microphone that is on the Logitech webcam. The webcam itself costs $60. I suspect that the microphone is a $5 afterthought part of that. So I'm not too convinced that the microphone and that's all that good. So I'm plugged this in and place of that. So there you go. Several months ago, I was reading the medical definition of death is cessation of brain activity. Yeah, Ray, and that's an interesting point. Different states define it differently. And in the old days, the thinking was if your heart stopped beating, you were dead. But you may or may not know, but medical technology now has the ability to keep your heart beating long after the rest of you has given up the ghost. So they now generally say it has to do with the brain activity, and not simple brain activity, but certain kinds of brain activity, because they have machines that can keep your heart going, keep your lungs going, keep your blood pumping. But the brain activity is a different thing altogether. So Altcoin checking in from Los Angeles, California. Thanks for checking in, my friends. Appreciate that. Chris asks, what do you think about forced confessions during police interrogation? I am leery of many confessions given during police interrogations because police are really, really good at getting people to confess, and they can actually get people to confess to things they didn't do. And that's a scary concept. So, most people would be well served by, if they get into police custody, you simply say, I want to speak to an attorney, period. And if the police insist, then you just go quiet. And they say, well, you don't want to talk to us? You say, no, I want to speak to my attorney. My attorney will talk to you. And then shut up. But I've seen cases where they've proven it, where they've actually gotten people to confess to things they didn't do. And it's either because they've coerced them, or the people might have mental issues, people who are tired and sleep deprived, for instance, or they might say, hey, you confess to this and you won't be found guilty of this. And they may or may not have done that, but they go, well, that's not as bad of a deal. I'll take that. So confessions are weird, but Norman Franklin says cops can legally lie all day long. And of the topics I've covered in the most recent episodes of my video, last couple of years, the two that really bother people the most, and also not that it upsets people, but people don't believe me. Police can lie to you. A police officer can pull you over and say, I saw you run a red light, knowing full well that he didn't see that. A cop can say that to you. That's not against the law for a police officer to lie to you. The number two thing that cops can do that upsets people is that cops don't have to tell you why they pulled you over, what they're looking for, or even why they've arrested you. So they can arrest you and take you to jail, lock you in the jail cell, and walk away without saying a word to you about why you've been arrested. And that's been upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. And so has the bit about them lying to you. And people say, Steve, Hawaii 5-0, book them, Dano. And Dano always says you're being arrested for murder 1, murder 2, whatever. The hitman from Detroit. The point is that they don't have to tell you, and they can lie to you, which means, put those two together, a cop can lie to you about why you've been arrested. A police officer could say to you, you've been arrested for the murder of that person, when in reality, you've been arrested for something else. So it's crazy. And I think most people find it offensive because they go, if the police serve us, should they be lying to us and then like arresting us and not telling us why? It sounds like a police state, or sounds like something happened like in an Eastern Bloc country before the wall came down. Yeah, it happened there too. And it happens here. Can I answer all questions to a police officer with perhaps? It's probably a dangerous thing to do. You're better off answering it with silence. So I've jokingly told people before that when somebody asks you, well, is it possible that this happened? You look at them and go, anything's possible. But, it depends on the setting. You can get yourself in trouble by giving smart aleck answers. So Tommy points out, and the police can take your money. Yes, they can. They can take it and call it civil asset forfeiture. And good luck getting that back. Mark points out that a lawmaker wants to make gun-free zones liable if someone gets hurt in Michigan in one. Yeah, that's a piece of legislature that a politician has introduced. I'm not sure how far it's gotten, and of course, it's one of those things that it's going to be debated by both sides because there are some mandated gun-free zones in Michigan, and then there's also businesses have the right to be gun-free if they want to be. And so then the question becomes, can we make it so that if I make my business gun-free and then you get hurt by a criminal, that you can sue the guy who owns the business? Which seems a little removed to me, but we'll see what happens if the law passes. Haven't talked about that one because I hate to talk about laws that are in the process of being passed, only because two reasons. One is it might never get passed, at which point it's all theoretical. But number two, as they go through the legislative process, they often change the law. So you can be discussing something in the law and go, this is really crazy, and they fix that and then pass it as a law. And then I'd be stuck with a video where I'm talking about something in a law that's not there anymore. So it's very, very iffy. Grosser points out that the mic is a bit bright. Take it down a couple. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think I can control that while I'm in the middle of a live feed, but I will take that into consideration in the future. So let's see here. It would be hard to determine alternate scenarios for liability to a gun-free zone thing, and that would be, like I said, the whole issue. So, do I troll car dealers in court by having a glass of lemonade in front of me? Stephen Toohey. No, I don't. But, it's funny because I actually don't spend a lot of time with the lemon imagery. So, for instance, you'll notice there's no lemons behind me. And my website's got no lemons on it. And I've always been kind of, I think the lemon thing's kind of cheesy. I talk about lemon less because that's what people know it as. But I know law firms out there that put lemons on their websites, and they put lemons with little wheels on them. See, it's a lemon car. See, and I don't do that. And I just never got into that kind of messaging. So I talk about lemons, as a topic, but I leave it at that. What's my opinion on the current Michigan budget mess? It's a mess, but I suspect it's a lot like the budget mess in virtually every other state out there. I think Michigan's got a line item veto, meaning that the legislature creates. Let me see how this works. The legislature is the one that takes the budget and presents it to the governor, and the governor can then go through the line item and cross out things that he or she does not like. Right now, be a she, and then the legislature can then override the line item vetoes if they got enough votes to do it. It's been a while since I looked at exactly how the budget works in Michigan, but Michigan, like every other state out there, doesn't have enough money to waste on the things they want to waste the money on, nor on the things that they need to be spending the money on and the actual problems they need to fix. So, Four Seasons, how's your weather up there? It is extremely cold. In fact, I'll tell you what the temperature is right now by checking. Well, I got 42 degrees, 42. So I guess it's not as cold as it has been. So, Timothy Woodruff, why do we live in this state? I like Michigan. I actually like the seasons. I like that there's a winter and a summer and a spring and a fall. I've lived places, California and Florida, I've mentioned before, that have seasons, but it's not that dramatic or distinct. And there's other things that go along with that. One thing about places in America that are warm is where people go because they want to, so what happens is you get a ton of people in these places who aren't from there. And so, one thing about the cold snaps in Michigan is it encourages a lot of people to leave. People behind. It's survival of the fittest. The people who stick around in Michigan are the ones who want to be here. I'd rather be with the people that want to be here than with the people who came here to get away from someplace else. So there you go. Miller, would you be interested in making a subreddit? I don't know much about Reddit other than I've heard of it. I know what it is. I know that a while back, I was Googling my name and I forgot what Google search I punched in, and up popped a Reddit feed. and the Reddit feed was entitled something to the effect of "What's happened to Jalopnik these days?" And someone was complaining about Jalopnik, and that's a website, jalopnik.com, that I used to write for. And somebody had jumped in and said, Jalopnik has gone down the tubes, but one bright spot is this attorney named Steve Leto. Check him out. And I had just started writing for them not too long before that comment went up. And then there's a whole bunch of comments underneath that about, oh, yeah, I checked it out. I like that guy. So that's pretty much all I know about Reddit. So if it involves more work, I'm not too crazy about it, only because I do have a lot of stuff. Yeah, Donald points out Michigan does not have palmetto bugs. We've got cockroaches, but they're much smaller. And the problem with the palmetto bugs in Florida, like any other cockroach, is if they're outside, I don't mind them all that much. But when you wake up in the morning and there's one about this big sitting on your chest, looking you in the eye, trying to figure out if you're alive or not, that's when you realize, okay, that's a cockroach, and that ain't good that he's in the house. So Bob asks, you bring a briefcase or a big folder to bring material to court? I have got a cool briefcase. I believe that how you can tell a good lawyer is by his taste in watches and his taste in briefcases. I'm not so big on how expensive is the tie, what kind of shoes. I often wear Doc Martens to court. Nobody notices, nobody cares. But I've got a really cool briefcase. In fact, now that you ask, I will bring it on camera one of these days, and I'll mention it in a video and say, by the way, someone asked about my briefcase. Here it is. Really, really cool briefcase made by a company called Saddleback Leather, which I mentioned. I mention brand names from time to time. They're not paying me. I'm not advertising. But, I mentioned the Electro Voice RE20, the Blue Nessie microphone, Breitling, Leto's Law. These are all brand names we can get behind, not because they're advertising, but just because they put out a good quality product. There we go. Downhill for Life says, try mountain biking at 33 degrees Fahrenheit. Thank you very much, but no. I used to mountain bike year round, depending on whether the trails were open with snow. And you have to cover your face because you're getting hit with cold air. You're breathing cold air. Your hands get cold. I posted the photograph a few episodes back where I crashed on my mountain bike and I scraped half my face off. That happened in the wintertime. My hands were cold and I had a hard time hanging onto the handlebars. So I don't like mountain biking in the cold. It's just not fun anymore. Maybe I'm getting old. Well, I am getting old. There's no maybe about it. But I've mentioned before, I bought a Peloton, another brand name, just mentioning them. I've had it now for a little over 2 weeks, and I'm averaging about 2 rides a day. And I love the thing. And it combines everything I like. The biking activity, plus it's got the screen and you can follow classes. So I can go for a bike ride in the mountains of Hawaii or whatever, and so it's really cool. So I've been doing that. So my mountain bike is in the garage right now. It's cold out there, but it won't get ridden in this cold. It's going to sit out there until the spring, and I'll take it out in the spring and ride it then. Someone asked about, is the Breitling set to the atomic clock? Hey, I didn't say it kept good time. I just said it's a watch, okay? The Breitling is an automatic watch, meaning that it winds itself by you moving your wrist, but it does not have any connection to any atomic anything anywhere other than it is, in fact, made out of molecules, which are comprised, I believe, of atoms. But it theoretically is a wind-up watch. If you don't move it, you have to wind it, but I don't wind it. I wear it every single day. So there you go. What's name says road rash is the worst. Yeah, it's been a while since I've crashed on a mountain bike or bike, but I mean, I remember when I was a little kid, I had a Stingray bike and then a 10-speed bike, and I remember a few times wiping out on gravel and scraping like the side of my calf, and it's gross, it hurts, and it takes a long time to heal, and so that's not good. So haven't crashed on the Peloton just right yet. That's not good. So haven't crashed on the Peloton just right yet. Vernaker says you're not old, you're vintage. Yeah, which explains the patina. That's what we call it, getting old. Paul Lemke, does it keep London time? Yeah, I look at it and go, hey, it's 2 o'clock. Let's see, add 5. It's 6:45, London time. There you go. Hello from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. What is the terrain like? Mostly flat? Where I am in Michigan is mostly flat. Michigan, for the most part, is a relatively flat state. You drive through sections of it. If you go up north a little bit, there are some more rolling areas. And the Upper Peninsula of Michigan's got some areas up there that have some hills and little mountains, but a mountain in Michigan is no mountain from Colorado. But it's generally flat farmland. I used to live, like I said, in Eau Claire, and Eau Claire is over here. And where I lived in Eau Claire, just south of town, were a bunch of orchards, like apple orchards and cherry orchards and things like that. And there were some rolling hills and stuff, which made the mountain biking and the running a lot more interesting and scenic. But where I live right now, I can ride a 5-mile thing out and back, and I have one hill to go down and the way back one hill to go up. That's it. Change of elevation like 23 feet or something like that in 5 miles. So there you go. Jeff says you don't own a bike till you wipe out. I've owned a couple. There you go. Aaron B says it's freezing here now. A bone-chilling 56F. Where are you? Yeah, there's a lot of places around that are bone-chilling 56 right now. So, hello from, oh boy, Yari. Is it Kiemela or Klemela? Hello from Kuopio, North Savo. I'm assuming that's Finland. I can pronounce some Finnish, but not terribly well, but I don't speak any Finnish at all. Yeah, Mike Gertz says there's sand dunes that are nice on the west coast of Michigan. And yeah, up and down the west coast, especially up near Traverse City, there's Sleeping Bear Dunes, which is a national lakeshore. Huge, huge sand dunes. Really, really cool. And they've got sand dunes like that on Lake Superior in your Upper Peninsula also. So, there's a lot of neat scenery in Michigan. I'm not saying that Michigan's boring. I'm just saying that we don't have mountains or things like that. But we've got other things to make up for it. So I especially like the lakes and the rivers in Michigan. Tech says, is the intro and extra Mrs. Leto? No, it's not. Those of you who asked and missed the very, very beginning of the show, the introduction to the show is a professional voiceover artist that I simply corresponded with and met while talking to people as a result of Leto's Law. I've met some of the coolest people in the broadcast industry from doing my show. And I mentioned before I did the live broadcast this past summer from WLLW Geneva, New York. And I met those people because of this show. But I've also just met a whole bunch of other people because I've mentioned I worked in radio. And so guys will contact me and say, Steve, I work in radio. I used to work in radio. And so I've met a lot of people in radio. And just said, hey, it might be fun to just stick in a little tiny voiceover at the beginning. And we added one at the end. Don't know if you caught that or not. But I just thought, hey, I'll try to, like I said, class it up a little tiny bit. Michigan is a land of 1,000 lakes. Yeah, and Minnesota also calls themselves that, land of 10,000 lakes. Believe it or not, the word Michigan is a distorted word that came from a language spoken by the natives who are here when European descendants got here. And it's a much longer word, like Michiganian. And that word literally meant lake country or land of lakes. So that's actually what Michigan does, in fact, mean. So someone's asking about the SEMA show. That's the show where all the hot cars and the people who do all the modifications. I've never been to SEMA. I've been to the Autorama many times and also the Detroit North American International Auto Show many times, but I've never been to SEMA. Probably should go one of these days, but I haven't been out there. Radio is a small world. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And it's interesting because I actually attended a trade school in southeastern Michigan called Specs Howard School of Broadcast Arts back in 1981. I'm still friends with people who work there and teach there. And anytime you meet somebody in radio in the Midwest, I always go, oh, are you a Specs grad? And they go, yeah. So am I. And it's just funny. It is, in fact, a very small world. And it turns out that we actually do know each other, run into each other, and or have mutual friends. So, and Dino Rat caught the I am not a robot at the end of the episode. After a couple people accused the voiceover of being a robot, I had her record one that said, oh, by the way, I'm not a robot. There you go. Does your woodworker brother take orders? I assume you mean orders and then put it together and finished himself. And I have in my living room a coffee table that is a work of art. I show it to people and they're like, oh my gosh, where'd you get that? And I go, my brother made that. Same story. Chopped it down himself, everything himself. And I have desks. I've got coffee tables, bookcases, and stuff he's made. I get it from him wholesale, so I get a really good deal. But if you're ever in the Frankfort, Michigan area, there's a couple stores that sell his stuff. And if you're ever going to be up in the area, shoot me a note and I'll tell you what stores have his stuff and ask, and it'll blow your mind. The stuff he makes, he literally, hand makes wooden furniture, old craftsman style, and it's cool. I'm one of these guys. I like a coffee table that's so big that when you bump into it, it hurts you and your relatives. I don't want a coffee table that I'm scared, like, if I put my foot on that, it's going to break. It's like, no. This coffee table will be here long after the house is gone, okay? So it's a cool-looking coffee table, but it's got substance. That's what I'm trying to get across here. So he makes stuff like that, but he makes other stuff too. I mean, that's simply me. I said, Dave, here's the coffee table I want you to make, and he made it for me, okay? So there you go. Long answer to a very, very short and simple question. King Albert says, hey, Steve, this is Albert from California saying hi. Hey, thanks checking in there. Where in California are you? I'm primarily from familiar with the Los Angeles area. I've been to San Diego. I've been to San Francisco and driven back and forth between all of them. But I know more about Los Angeles than any place else. So here we go. Handmade beats the stuff from IKEA. Paul, that's true. And I'll tell you right now, I've handmade or, assembled some of those things that you buy from either IKEA or just, Home Depot or something or Office Depot. Go to Office Depot and buy a desk for $79 or better yet, go to Target and buy a $79 desk. And as you take it out of the box, pieces are breaking. And it's that weird pressed board where they take sawdust and like chopped up political prisoners and they press it into lumber. And then they tell you, insert slot A into piece B. And then they give you a bunch of parts and it's an old joke, but it's true. There's extra parts and parts missing. And I'll tell you right now, if you ever die and go to hell, you will know that you're there when a guy walks up to you with horns and a pitchfork and says, here, I've got some instructions for you. Go assemble that barbecue. Because there's nothing more painful, frustrating, and annoying than trying to assemble a barbecue using the instructions that they give you at the store, which are entirely pictographs. Okay? There's no words, no language. It's a drawing of a barbecue that looks kind of like the one you got, but it'll actually say, if you've got the model 4100, go from page 1 to page 7. But if you have the 4200, go from page 1 to 3. Unless, of course, it's the 4100B built after this date, in which case go from 3 to 8 and then back to 2. Trust me. Start living a better life right now so you don't find yourself assembling barbecues in the afterlife. My prayers go out to the people of California. I assume you're talking about the wildfires. And that's some scary stuff, natural disasters. Every part of the country's got its own. Michigan, we get tornadoes and a few other things. A lot of the Midwest gets tornadoes, but then you also have like hurricanes back east and down south, and then of course fires out west. So it's a very, very sad things. So Muskegon is named from an Indian who lost his musket in the river. That's the joke. Interesting. It's kind of interesting because a lot of the place names go way, way back. I wrote a book about Douglas Houghton, one of the early explorers in Michigan. And in his writings, he would talk about places he's been, and you would recognize some of the places as being close to the modern place names, but different just enough where they hadn't finalized it just yet. William points out that the mosquitoes in Michigan are a problem, and yes, they are. Michigan mosquitoes will hurt you. I mean, they'll hurt you bad. Testicles says Australia has some big fires going on right now. Do they? I got some friends in Australia. I have to check that out. Australia, of course, is a very, very large place. And I don't know as much about it as I should. Never been there, but I'd love to go there. Somebody asks, where's the $100 bill? The $100 bill is probably harder to spot So I'm cheating for you right there, but it's right there. It's underneath the rear wheel of the Ferrari. Steve, do you believe in climate change, or are you a flat Earth / sovereign citizen? I like the way you phrased the question to let me know what the answer is, and I agree with you. New South Wales region, NSW, Australia. Yeah, again, I know a tiny little bit about Australia, and I've mentioned before I've got a radio show that I'm on, road ramblings once a month with my American Car Report. But I got to get down there. I got to get down there one of these days. Yeah, Mark says I've seen some mosquitoes in Michigan up near Traverse City that could pick up a baby. It's like in the old days when they actually thought like eagles come down and grab children. A mosquito could probably do that too. Speaking of Douglas Houghton a minute ago, Douglas Houghton explored the Upper Peninsula in 1840, and he was a physician, and he actually mentioned having to treat people in his group for injuries that had started out as mosquito bites. And of course, these are guys living on the frontier, camping and sleeping out, in the woods. And if you get a mosquito bite and you don't have access to clean water or soap or antiseptic or alcohol, it can get infected pretty quickly. And some of the descriptions in his journals were quite graphic, shall we say. And again, an injury that began as a mosquito bite. Can I post a link to that radio show, Jim Bergen? I will make a note. I have nothing to write with for some odd reason, but I will make a note. To put a link up to Road Rambling's website, and I'll do that in the description below or in the comments below. But it's a radio show in Australia that, like I said, I'm on it just briefly once a month. But Chris, the host, is a great guy. So there you go. Somebody posted the number 42, which I assume it can only be a reference to the answer to the question, The Life, the Universe, and Everything, by Douglas Adams, and of course, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So there you go. Mosquitoes in Nova Scotia fly in formation, but I have to assume that they well, I guess Nova Scotia, I know it gets cold up there, right? And isn't that also home to Oak Island? The Curse of Oak Island? Don't get me going. David says, I don't have to worry about dying and going to hell. I live in New Jersey. They got nothing on us. That could be. So you can crack New Jersey jokes. I can't. So there you go. Sable says, people say the cold kills the bugs, but remind them how bad they are up north. No, and that's the thing. I mean, when you go out in the wintertime, there are not mosquitoes outside right now. I mean, there aren't. But go out in the woods in August, and it's not just the mosquitoes, it's the flies. There are flies in the woods in Michigan that will cause you to bleed. They will bite you, and the bites will actually bleed. And so that's not a good thing. I've been mountain biking in some places before where if you stopped, you get swarmed by flies. And then if you took off riding as fast as you can, you couldn't lose them because they'd either be riding on you or riding in your slipstream. And so you learn very quickly, you never stop in the shade. You never stop in the woods. Just keep moving. It's a matter of life and death. Deer flies worse than mosquitoes. Yes, Mike, that's what I'm talking about right there. The deer flies. The deer flies in Michigan, especially up north, they will get you. They will hurt you. A deer fly is a type of fly that lives in the woods. It will bite you and it'll make you bleed. So there you go. Mosquitoes are so bad in the Everglades, you get a blood donor card. Doesn't surprise me. I actually went out the Everglades once or twice, just did the little touristy thing in the little, the little airboats. And it's one of those things that's interesting to see, but alligators, crocodiles, and of course, not crocodiles, but alligators, of course, boa constrictors, because so many idiots get pets and then decide, well, I don't like this pet anymore. I'm going to go dump it in the Everglades. So they've got boa constrictors out there now, which are running amok. And Florida also is a home of iguanas. Again, escape pets, which iguanas can get to be quite big. And I remember seeing a lot of very, very big iguanas. Um, and there are also snails in Florida that get to be this big, and they were brought to Florida, I believe, from Africa as pets. And again, somebody said, "Hey, let's just let them go." And they're so big and nasty. If you run them over your car, you get a flat tire. That's how bad they are. So I guess Steve asked about the vacuum tube, and I assume he's asking about this. I mentioned this in a recent video, but in case you weren't following along at the time, I mentioned a while back that I worked in radio for a while, of course, with the microphones. But I also, at one point, had a whole collection of old radio tubes, and I had maybe two or three of these, really, really cool, just like this or variations hereof. And I lost them in a series of moves. They may have broken or gotten lost. I don't even remember what happened to them. And the other day, I was on the air bemoaning how I have my microphones, but not my radio tubes. And several people have told me that they're going to get me radio tubes. And Clark from Michigan was the first guy to hook me up. I've got a couple others coming, though, I believe. So I will add them to the collection. I need a way to display this as safe because they're not really stable because of the way the pins are. So right now, I put it there. But again, I don't know if people can see that because it's glass and it kind of blends into the knick-knacky background. But yeah, so I got that there. I got a few more coming. And I might have something else coming, which is going to cause me to redo the entire background. And so here's the idea. By the way, we just hit 2:00, but I'm going to go a little bit longer because we got time. I got no place to go. I got work to do. I'd rather do this. So if I get something in the mail, which I might be getting shortly, it's going to take up a lot of space in the background. So what I'm probably going to have to do is I got two of these bookshelves. Got the other one right here. So what I'm probably going to do is turn the camera, put the bookshelves next to each other, and then redo them completely. And that'll also allow me to make up and use some of this space right here and some of this space right here, which is just visually dead space. So I'll do something with that. But that's something down the road. And I know there are people out there who freak out when we have changes. So I'll do what I can to lessen the impact of the change. So could your brother make a display base for the vacuum tube? Yes, he could, but this is the kind of thing I can also. I've got a power drill, and I can find a piece of wood and just drill 5 holes in it and stick it in there. So that's what I'll probably do. But we'll see how that goes. So yeah, and Patrick says you just drill holes in a 2x4. That's pretty much all it would be. So somebody points out that they might have a base for that. Yeah, there you go. So it's kind of funny because I've had people tell me they have other things that are memento oriented, mixing consoles, for instance. But my whole thing is I've only got so much room behind me, and so as it is, I've got to jam as much as I can in there. So unfortunately, some of the bigger things. Somebody sent me a photograph of a vacuum tube like this big, like the size of like one of those big 10-gallon pretzel things from Walmart or something, but it would overwhelm the background. So, the microphones are about the biggest things I'll put back there, along with the books. By the way, a lot of people ask me about the bank, and this is a bank made by a Michigan craftsman. And I was talking about it. People kept asking me, and someone sent me an email and said, sorry, but the guy's sold out. I found his website. He's all sold out. Somebody else recently wrote me and said, Steve, I found his website. Apparently, he's got them back in stock. So he's a craftsman. He makes them. I don't know if I've created a demand for them by having him on my show. I don't know. But I put that up a few months ago. I picked it up in Traverse City. He's from Michigan. And so I hope he's getting business because it's a really cool. I don't often handle the knickknacks on my show, but I'm not kidding you when I tell you this weighs about 10 pounds. And there's no way for me to demonstrate for you how heavy it is, but it's extremely heavy. And it's a bank. It actually does have a bolt on one side that you can undo and take apart. And then, of course, the coins would go in there. But I've not put any coins in there because I Never occurred to me until just now that I could. I mean, I knew it was a bank, but I never thought, boy, I should put some coins in here so I could shake it and indicate that it's in fact a bank. But it's one of these things where it's really cool. I just really like it. So I saw it and I said, that's got to go on the back shelf. So that might be the heaviest thing I have behind me. What did I think of the TV show WKRP in Cincinnati? We may have had this discussion before. It's a great show. The interesting thing, of course, is that it wasn't realistic about a radio station format-wise, and it was a little goofy, but it was a comedy. But the show is brilliantly written. The characters are good. The concepts were good. As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly. Some of it was brilliant, and so. I always liked it, and I've seen it in reruns, and it holds up pretty well. There's some other stuff from the 70s that don't hold up that well, but WKRP was a classic. So the block of wood near the cups, is that the one you got from the Italian Hall? Yeah, I've moved it around a few times. I got to find a place for this. This will always be in the shot. You can see from the description that it's a block of wood from the Italian Hall. Some of the numbers are off a little bit, but what happened was the hall got knocked down in 1984, and a guy went into the pile of debris and grabbed the floorboards, and he diced them up into little keepsakes. And you can see it's a floorboard because there's the nail where the flooring was held in place. And he put felt on one side and silkscreen the other side. It's wood from the Italian Hall. 1908, 1984, and that's the building was put up in 1908. Italian Hall disaster, Christmas Eve, 1913, 74 lives lost. The number 73, but that's okay. And then it says, how many girls, boys, women, and men. And the real important thing about the Italian Hall disaster is simply that it was a disaster caused by somebody doing something bad, and all those people died, and most of them are children. More than half of them are of Finnish descent, and they were almost all affiliated with the miners of the region who were on strike. So it was a labor event. So, I don't normally get real political on this show or on my channel, but as Christmas is approaching, the event happened on Christmas Eve, 1913. So every Christmas and Christmas Eve, I always think of that. And I wrote an article for Opposite Lock a few years ago. And Jalopnik front paged the article for me a few times on Christmas Eve. Is just, hey, everybody, let's remember this event that happened. Woody Guthrie wrote a song about it called 1913 Massacre. It's been performed by a bunch of people, including Woody Guthrie and Bob Dylan, and Bruce Springsteen, and so on. But it's one of those things that I always think about around Christmas Eve. And, so I'm glad that people spot that. I have a chair that was in the Italian Hall at the disaster time. Also, it's over here, though. I never sit on. I sometimes would put it here as something to have in the shot. I moved it out for some reason. It's over here right now. But again, that's something. Someone gave that to me. They got into the hall before it got knocked down, and they actually knocked the hall down with a lot of the furnishings still inside of it. So, I mean, they literally were hauling out the debris from the building, and there's busted up furniture in there. And so a friend of mine got into the building right before it got knocked down and grabbed a bunch of the chairs. And the chairs are identical. These are the chairs that were in the hall that night. And it's amazing to have a floorboard from, people are standing on that night, but also a chair that people are sitting in that night. So extremely important stuff to me. I wrote a book about it called Death's Door. So if you ever get bored, go on to Amazon and look that up, or you can look the story up on Wikipedia. Too much sugar asking, am I in Michigan or everybody else? I'm in Michigan, southeastern Michigan. Hi, Steve from the UK. David Watt. Where in the UK? I need specifics, my friends. Tex Barkley. I like the mysterious woman. I'm not a robot. By the way, this is dividing the channel. This is causing so much strife on my channel. There are people out there who hate the introduction done by a voice other than mine. And it's people who love the introduction done by a voice other than mine. And as I pointed out, and I pinned the comment, my show used to start with a black screen that simply says Leto's Law and the title of the show. And then the video would start with me talking. Okay. So I thought, well, there's no sound here. It couldn't possibly harm to have a voiceover here that says, hey, welcome, Steve, welcome to Leto's Law. Here's Steve Leto. And by the way, that would allow me to start talking sooner and save you guys 4 seconds. I'm trying to save you guys time. 4 seconds. 4 seconds. And so there you go. Steve, do you hate cops? No, actually, I don't hate cops. I've done some videos critical of the police. And I believe that police are like lawyers or doctors or any other profession where they should hold themselves to a standard, recognizing that they are, in essence, representative of the entire profession. So that when I go out in public or I make a video and I tell people I'm an attorney, I am conscious of the fact that people look at me and go, he's an attorney. They don't look at me as an individual, as an attorney entirely, because they also go, but he's one of a group of people who are all attorneys. And so when you have a cop or a judge or a fireman or a, any other profession, an accountant, okay, any profession, they need to hold themselves to a certain standard. And so when police do bad things, it looks bad. But number two, police are supposed to be enforcing the law. So when you have police breaking the law, that's even worse. And, so I actually know some police officers. I talk to them in court all the time. We get along. Unfortunately, there's a perceived antagonism between cops and lawyers, the same way that there is between the sheepdog and the wolf. Hey, Sam, how you doing? At the beginning of the cartoons, they both clock in, they do their work, they clock in, they go home, they're friends. And that's the way I'm also friends with not just police officers, but also other attorneys who defend the lawsuits I file against the big three. Daniel Hammond says, I'm a cop and I love your show. Daniel, where are you a police officer? At least what state are you in? I'm curious, but I appreciate that. I can tell you right now, and I don't like to sit around and talk about, like, hey, I've got a video that's real popular. But of the videos I put up, one of the videos that's gotten the most responses where people have actually emailed me directly, okay, not comment on the video, but email me, sending me emails. I've gotten emails from around North America. I've gotten emails from Canada and pretty much, I'd say about half the states, where people have written to me and said, Steve, I am a police officer in this jurisdiction. And they actually tell me what jurisdiction they're a police officer in. I want to thank you for putting up the video that says how to behave at the roadside. Because ostensibly, if you watch the video, I'm telling you how to try not to get a ticket. But half of what I'm telling you is stuff to put the police officer at ease so that it lowers the tension inherent in that transaction at the side of the road. Police officer walks up to your car at night, you've got the dome light on, your hands on the wheel, windows down, and you turn and you politely say, may I help you? As opposed to the car pulls over the side of the road, window is still up, interior lights are off, the car is dark, the officer doesn't know who's in the car. Is he going to get shot at? Is he going to get yelled at? He doesn't know. So by diffusing that, I've had officers say, Steve, I appreciate that because you're making my job easier. Even if I don't cut the guy slack on the ticket, it's making my job easier. And this is one of the situations where I'm going to tell you right now, do it for both reasons. Do it to make their job easier, but also do it because it might help you get out of a ticket or get a lesser ticket. So, hey, if it profits you both ways, why not do it? I've had people say, no, cop pulls me over, I'm going to give him a hard time, tell him to go screw himself. I don't have to roll my window down. I'm going to talk him through a little crack like this. I'm going to yell at him. I won't show him my license. I'm going to hold my license up against the window and say, there, look at it. Go ahead and do that. Okay. You're going to be the person who gets a ticket and I'm the one who doesn't. Okay. But like I said, I get correspondence unsolicited from around the whole North America region. Not sure I've gotten any from Mexico, but I've gotten emails from all over thanking me. And I've actually had police officers tell me, Steve, hi, Ralph, hi, Sam. I've had police officers tell me, Steve, I got this sent to me by another police officer who said, look, this guy put up a video where he's telling people that they should do this. This is really, really cool. So Daniel Hammett says, I think your videos help me in my job. So there you go. Thank you. I'm glad they do. So cops are a necessary evil. It's when they let evil get away with too much. Yeah. I won't say they're necessarily evil. I think they're necessary. You know, it's. I remember when I was a little kid. I'm talking about 7th or 8th grade. I had a neighborhood friend. I was friends with a kid. Hung out, saw each other at the playground or at school or whatever. And I remember this kid one day, and he had an older brother who was teaching him how to be cool. And one day a police car drove by as we were walking our bikes along. And my friend, who's in 7th grade, turns to me and goes, "Yeah, there goes a pig. He's a pig." And 7th grade kid trying to be cool. And I turned to him and I go, "So who are you going to call when you get in trouble?" And he goes, "I'm not going to call a pig." And I go, "So someone breaks into your house and steals your stuff. Then what are you going to do?" He goes, I don't know. He hadn't thought it through very well. But again, he's a kid, 7th grader, so that's okay. Beelzebub says, "Hey, if you make the cop laugh, a good chance he'll let you go." I've heard that from a lot of people, not just cops. I mean, I've actually heard cops say that, but I'm not a stand-up comic. I don't know if I could whip out my material at the roadside. I've had people say, "Steve, do you tell cops you're an attorney when you get pulled over?" No. I'm worried that they're going to have pent-up frustration. Want to take it out on me. Go, "Hey, I finally got a chance to pull over a cop." I can tell you right now that there's businesses out there where if someone calls me and says, "Hey, Steve, I want to sue this business," there are one or two that I would take simply because it's a business I want to get back at. A good friend of mine who's an attorney called me last week for advice on a case. And he starts describing his case. And I go, "Dude, that case is a dog. I wouldn't touch that case with a 10-foot pole." And he goes, "Yeah, you're right." I go, who is it?" He told me. And I go, wait. "We'll take it." And he goes, "Really?" I go, "Yeah." And I told him a story about why I want to get back at this business. But I've already said too much, so we'll wait. Dear Steve, just because something rhymes does not make it funny. That's probably true. Officer, do you know who I am? I have 87,000 subscribers. Yeah, I doubt they'll be impressed by that. They'll go, "Yeah, the Kardashians have 17 million Instagram subscribers." Punky, I was pulled over by Lake County cops for having a car reported stolen out of Montana. Same plate numbers, but different state. You'd think they would know that. But that's the crazy thing nowadays. Even in Michigan, we used to have plates that were very obvious. A blue plate with white letters, a black plate with white letters, and it was always 3 and 3, 3 letters, 3 numbers. A few years ago, to raise money, they started issuing different plates. You can buy a University of Michigan plate, a Michigan State University plate, Lake Superior State University plate. You can buy plates for causes. I save the children, feed the whales, protect the trees, whatever. And not only are the plates different designs and so on, but they'll often have different letter combinations. So I'm in favor of even numbers plate will have 2 letters and 3 numbers. And then the one that says I believe in saving our legumes will have 2 letters and 2 numbers. And I've actually pulled into a parking lot before and go, "Wait, is that a Michigan plate or not? I don't even know if it's a Michigan plate." And then, "Oh, wait, that is. That's just an unusual plate. I forgot that they made that one available." So when I go to renew my plates every year, there's this big flyer you get. "Do you want one of these plates?" "No, I just want a plain one with 3 and 3. I might get a personalized plate, but I wouldn't put it on an Explorer. I might get a personalized plate if I ever get a sports car. Another story altogether. So, Great Lakes when I left. Mike, are you talking about the Great Lakes state? That was the common thing we had. We had Great Lakes state on our plates for years. Now it depends on the slogan. And then prior to that, it was the Winter Water Wonderland. I remember seeing that when I was a really little kid, but that's a long time ago. Is Lakeshore Drive in Michigan? There probably are some places called Lakeshore Drive, but I think you're referring to Chicago. Lakeshore Drive, I think. So, yeah, I don't Lakeshore Drive. I'm not really sure about that, unless, or maybe Grosse Point or something. Carl says YouTube was nice enough to notify me just now that you went live. Yeah, sorry about that. Day late and a dollar short, as my dad used to say. Went live about an hour 20 ago. But that's one of the reasons we go long, just to make sure. And we, by the way, got close to 400, but not quite 400. So maybe something's happening today. Are the Lions playing? Don't know. I can tell you, Michigan did not play football yesterday. The University of Michigan had a bye yesterday. It always bums me out when they have a bye in the middle of the season like this. So, Missouri Silver says, come on, Steve, I keep asking a question. Please answer about my mower. I don't know what the question is. And again, I apologize. The problem with the live feed is that the feed goes by in real time. And so if you get a ton of comments, I glance, I see something catches my eye and I answer it and it gets pushed away. And so I've had people come on here before and say, you know, I asked a question and you didn't answer it. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm not ignoring you. So I don't know what the question was regarding the mower, but maybe some other day. I actually had someone post a comment the other day on one of my videos. It says, Steve, I left voicemails at your office. I've sent emails to you, and now I'm commenting here, and you've never responded to me. And I wrote him back under his comments. Well, just so you know, I'm the only person who reads my emails. I'm also the only person who clears my voicemails. So if you left me a voicemail, I heard it. But I can also tell you right now that my office phone is buried in voicemails because my number's on my webpage and it's all over the internet. And what happens is people call my office and they go, hey, Steve, got a question for you. Here's my phone number, 953-555-5555. And my outgoing message says specifically, hi, you've reached the office of Steve Lato. I'm not here at the moment. Please leave your name, number, and the reason you called. It's an intelligence test, people. If you can't leave a reason you called and you leave me an out-of-state phone number, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to prioritize your phone call because I'm only licensed to practice in Michigan. Now, if I'm in my office and I see the phone ring and I recognize that it's out-of-state number, I still answer. I answer them all the time. And people go, you know, hey, Steve, you got a problem? Can you help me? And I say, what state are you in? They go, I'm in Oklahoma. I say, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I'm only in Michigan. I'm licensed in Michigan. But general advice I might be able to give you, just not legal advice. You know, somebody wants to know tips on how to buy a used car, I can help you with that. But if you call my office and leave a message that says, Steve, 956-555-5555, click. It might not get back to that right away. Sorry. And same thing, I get emails. Steve, I have a question. And they sign it. And I look at it going, what's the question? And one of the other problems is that a lot of the phone calls I get where it's a name and number but no message, a lot of them are sales calls. And when a salesperson tricks me into calling them back, in the back of my mind, I actually think, wow, they won. Because half my time in my office is spent dodging sales calls or hanging up on them or calling them names because they've spoofed a phone number. So there you go. Cliff, bet you can see my comment. No, I couldn't. I have ESP. What can I tell you? Can you give advice on federal constitutional law? Well, I can talk about the Constitution. I can talk about federal law because I am licensed to also practice law in the federal courts in Michigan. And I studied constitutional law in law school. And the Constitution applies in all 50 states. Now, there are some variations in federal jurisdictions on some issues, but when it simply comes to the Constitution, I can opine on that all day long, just keeping in mind the caveat that when it comes to how it applies in any particular state, I can only speak with the authority of somebody who knows how it applies in Michigan. But yes, I know a bit about constitutional law as well. Steve, in a prostitution sting, prior to any kind of deal or exchange, if the suspect says to the female undercover cop, show me your body, and the parts I'm talking about normally are covered, and she does for no money or anything, is that entrapment? Sounds very specific, and I wouldn't know how to answer that question because the question then becomes what happens after that. And the question is whether she showed you them or not. I wonder if they would. Mo Silver, here's the mower question. My mower got stolen and I found the guy that bought it from the thief. Cops won't do anything because the serial number was on a sticker and gone. What can I do? If you were in Michigan, I would advise you thus. If you know for a fact that that is your mower and you think you can prove it, you could sue the thief if you know who the thief is, or you could sue the guy who's got possession of the mower if you wanted to for a thing called claim and delivery. However, it's probably not worth it because the cost of the mower is probably less than the cost of doing either of the legal actions. However, that's the concept. So let me give you an example. If your car got stolen, you owned a 1962 Ferrari GTO, which looks kind of like that, only bigger. Car gets stolen and you find it. Some guy's got it and he goes, hey, I got a bill of sale right here. I can prove to you I bought it from a guy. He got my money. I got the car. Disregarding the issues of titles, certificates of title, you could sue the guy who stole your car if you can figure out who he is and get cash damages, or you can sue for possession of the car if you can get jurisdiction over the person who's got it, meaning it's in the United States and a court will do this. So if this happened in Michigan and that car is in Michigan, we drop a claim and delivery action on them right now and we get the car back, and I've done that before. So there you go. Once in a while, somebody asks me a question I know the answer to. So sorry it took you for so long. Somebody asks if the question regarding the show me your stuff was asking for a friend. Yeah, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? But you never know. There's an issue with entrapment that often happens because the police will often, instead of using a bait car for a car thief, they'll put out a bait cop for a prostitution sting, and they'll have a young lady police officer dress really, really nice and sexy and have her stand in a place that's known for being frequented by people who frequent prostitutes. And then what will happen is they will arrest the people who approach her depending on how that approach looks. And so the question always is, did this bait person go too far in trying to entice somebody, or was the person coming there looking for a prostitute inclined to do that anyway, and they just happened to pick this person instead of the other person? Or as Homer Simpson so famously said, but I thought the cop was a prostitute. So there's my daily Simpsons reference for you. Ziegfeld says, say something about the microphones. Which ones? The ones in front of me or in back of me? The ones behind me are simply a collection of microphones I've gotten over the years. None of them are broadcast microphones for the most part. The one right here that everyone always likes is called a lollipop. It's a common one used by radio operators and CB guys back in the old days. I just like it because it looks cool. Some of the other ones are really, really old microphones, which I think look cool. That one right there is a ribbon mic, very, very old. And the one in the middle, the tallest one of them all, is a Shure. A lot of guys used that back in the 50s and 60s. There's a famous photograph of Elvis Presley singing and holding one. And it's just a really, really cool design. In fact, it's one of my favorite designs. This one's an Electro Voice RE20. Very, very iconic design, which was incorporated into the logo on my shirt by my graphic artist. And this, of course, is the USB Blue Nessie microphone. So there you go. Hello from Tofty MM. I'm not sure what MM is unless that's NM like New Mexico. So, yeah, it's the Astatic Lollipop. I think it's also called like a D108, maybe. I could be wrong on the number. So, and somebody's pointing out that, yes, now in Oklahoma, topless females in public are legal. That's also true in any other state, I believe in the 10th Circuit. I did an article about that or a video about that not too long ago. And so far, it hasn't made any big changes out there, but maybe in the upcoming spring and summer it will. So, Donald Norby, good job today. Thank you. Enjoyed it. Hey, thank you very much. Again, we didn't break 400 viewers, although I've not been watching that as closely as I should. But it would be nice. How about an RCA ribbon mic? Hey, you know, I have people from time to time donate microphones. About half the microphones behind me were given to me as gifts. But I bought a few of them also off of eBay and so on. If I find any cooler mics, I might substitute one or two out. And then, as I mentioned before, if I do broaden my background, I might add a few more. I've still got more microphones that aren't in the picture. I got about another dozen that aren't in the picture, so we'll see how it goes. Where can we purchase the shirt? This shirt? I've got a couple of these shirts left over. Depends on what size you want them in. If you legitimately want a shirt, I didn't want to be pitching stuff today. If you legitimately want one of these shirts, I'll sell you one at cost plus shipping. Email me directly. The address is in the description below, also underneath the video, but it's my email address for the show. It's steve@lehtoslaw.com, LEHTOSLAW.com, steve@lehtoslaw.com. And if I've got one in your size, I'll hook you up, especially if you can send me a picture of yourself wearing it proudly someplace cool. The Oklahoma State AG states he'll prosecute topless women due to decency laws. How is it unconstitutional as drafted? And so the question is whether Oklahoma has a statute on the books that was drafted radically different than the one that got before the 10th Circuit. That's possible. It's possible. But there are also guys out there, politicians in particular, who will grandstand because they know that no idea what time it is there. It's probably tomorrow. So there you go. But Vern Akers Hobby gets the last question today. Do you fish? No, I do not. Fished as a child, trout fishing on a stream, literally with a hook, a string, and a branch, or a piece of wood, a stick, a string, and a hook, and go get a worm, put it in the river, and catch trout. Did that in the Upper Peninsula as a child, 5-6 years. Enjoyed the trout. Trout didn't enjoy it as much as I did, but you know how it goes. But haven't fished since I became an adult. I've boated, canoed, spent time on rivers and lakes, but just haven't fished. And I eat fish, love fish and chips, but haven't fished myself. So we've gone past the hour-and-a-half mark. That's going to wrap it up for today. I'm glad the microphone worked out. I will dial it down a tiny little bit on the volume next week, but I think we've got it figured out. So this is what you're going to be seeing and hearing in the future. Like I said, Sundays, 1 o'clock Eastern time from this date forward. Spread the word to the far corners of the earth. And thank you for joining me, guys. I always have a blast doing this. Thank you very much. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.